If you've been looking for a new or certified Toyota, come be part of the team. With inventory arriving daily, we'll help you find a vehicle that works for your lifestyle and budget. We'll continue to ensure that your next buying experience is as safe and efficient as possible. Our service center is open with easy online scheduling and a quick, clean process to get you back on the road safely. Head to teamtoyota.net and be safe, be strong, be a team. Hey folks, welcome to the Phillies Talk podcast presented by Team Toyota. Corey Seidman and Jim Salisbury here with you as always. And it's week 2 of MLB's lockout. Jim, we discussed it a little bit last week. You expect this to go quite a while, huh?
Well, I'm not sure, but it feels like it's going to go for a while here, simply because, we're in the off season and the real urgency is not going to start, pulsating, I guess you could say, until we really feel like spring training's starting to pop up in the field of view here. I just think things are quiet. Sometimes that's good, means they're talking, but I'm feeling like there's not going to be a ton of activity until after the holidays, and the calendar will probably flip to January, and this is just my opinion, and then we'll start to see more action as we start to get in that spring training mode. I'm still one of the people who feels like they'll get this settled, that that this is close to an $11 billion industry, and there's a way to figure this stuff out. So I remain optimistic that it's not going to hurt anybody, or not going to lose any games or anything. But there are a lot of free agents out there. A bunch of them signed and know where they're going, but there's still a ton of them out there who don't know where they're going. So they're going to the anxiety level on those guys and front offices to finish the construction of their team is going to really start ramping up after the holidays here. So that's when I expect most of the heavy lifting to get done, and I'm still hopeful that they figure this thing out and can get these front offices, working to sign these guys, construct their teams, and get to spring training. I'm not sure that's going to happen. That's still my belief, is that, we're still a couple months away from spring training and close to 4 months away from opening day. So I feel like it's going to get done, and I hope it's going to get done, but who knows?
When baseball resumes, do you expect there to be as crazy of a period as we just saw with all those players signing ahead of the lockout? Do you think that the guys like Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos and some of the mid-tier free agents who are still lingering out there, do you think they're going to be so antsy to sign that they kind of jump at deals right away? I mean, it's difficult because the sides can't negotiate during this period, so it's not like work can be done towards a deal.
Right. The sides are not supposed to negotiate. I'm not naive enough to think that there's not some creative ways for willing parties to communicate during this time. But I think the urgency you're talking about, or the frenzy you're talking about, like we saw here a couple of weeks ago, that's all going to be dictated by when the deal is done. If they get a deal on, January 5th, I feel like there's still enough offseason left where guys can still, shop for the best deal, make the best deal, not necessarily jump at the first thing that comes down the pike. If it's, 3 or 4 weeks later and into February, yeah, you might see guys start jumping. And if it's mid-February and now we're, spring training camps is supposed to be open, you're going to see a lot of jumping. So it's all about when they get this thing done, to me.
Well, in the Phillies universe, there was some pretty bad news over the weekend. We expected that Dick Allen was finally going to get his call to the Hall of Fame via the Golden Days era ballot, but he was not. He fell up 1 vote short of election again, just as he did 7 years ago when that voting committee last convened. Just crazy, Jim. I mean, this is time after time that Dick Allen has been snubbed of the Hall of Fame, and you wrote a piece at NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com just kind of laying out the case he has as one of the most dominant players in baseball during his era, and yet he still remains on the outside looking in. I'm sure this surprised you, right?
Corey, I was absolutely shocked and stunned. When you have an announcement like this coming down the pike, and we all felt really optimistic about it, you know how it works, but I'll offer the listeners and the viewers a little peek behind the curtain. A lot of times, as a journalist, you kind of get your ducks in a row, and you have something, ready, written and ready to go when you get the announcement. Maybe you're waiting to kind of plug in the vote totals or some reaction, but you generally have your story constructed. Sometimes you have a win story, sometimes you have a lose story. In this case, I only had a win story written. I thought it was a no-brainer. I thought it was a slam dunk. I thought Dick Allen was going to finally get elected to the Hall of Fame. And it was going to be a really happy day for his family and for the Phillies and the people that supported him. And, I put on the MLB Network Sunday night at 6 o'clock and watched all the lead up to it. And then at like 6:30, they start making the announcements, and there's Gil Hodges. And I'm like, okay, great. Finally Gil Hodges gets in. His family must be elated. I think he was a great baseball man, had a great career as a manager and a player. Good for Gil Hodges. And then they announced Jim Cott. And I know Jim Cott personally. I've known him for 25 years, dating to my time covering the Yankees when he did some broadcasting over there. Absolute gentleman, 283 wins, like 16 Gold Gloves, an amazing career. Hats off to Jim Cott, Hall of Famer, well-deserved. Minnie Minoso, Hall of Famer, I think he was like a 15-time All-Star or something. They called him the Cuban Comet, and hats off to him. And then another native of Cuba, Tony Oliva, 2 or 3-time batting champ, gets elected. And I'm happy for him. And then I'm like, my jaw hits the ground. I'm like, Dick Allen is not among this group because they can, I think, only elect 4. You're only allowed to vote for up to 4 on your ballot. And I was absolutely stunned. I mean, it was as shocked as I've been, something, related to the job we do. It was as shocked as I've been covering a story. I can't remember the last time. I'm shocked because I feel like it's an injustice. I feel like he belongs there. So many times growing up, I was a big Jim Rice fan and big Red Sox fan. I really loved Jim Rice. I was a great player, team guy, put up big numbers, dangerous power hitter for his era. And you always hear about if you dominated your era, that was a big kind of feather in your cap for Hall of Fame candidacy. And Jim Rice kind of dominated his era. He was like, an era maybe defined as like 10 years. And eventually he gets in late in his Hall of Fame candidacy, And I was much younger when Dick Allen played, but later on digging into his numbers and looking at his career, I'm like, wow, this is the definition of dominating your era. He should be a Hall of Famer. Still stunned that he didn't fare more favorably on the writer's ballot that he dropped off in 97. He tapped out at like 18.9%. There were a lot of reasons why. He had carried a lot of baggage, but I think the world's eyes have been opened to the reasons he carried all that baggage. I mean, Jackie Robinson faced harsh racism, and he was instructed and not to fight back. Well, that must be really hard to do, not to fight back. I mean, Dick Allen had a hard time fighting back, and to me, that just makes him human. And I think later on, with the passage of time, people realized a lot of the realities and difficult times he played through, and I think our eyes became a lot more open to his story and the reasons that maybe some of his behaviors occurred, the behaviors that maybe writers held against him. And you just hope that finally this Golden Days era committee was going to be all aware of that and vote on him favorably. View the whole package, the whole person, what went into the player and his performance, and take that all into consideration. And now he'll be a Hall of Famer. And I'm stunned it didn't happen. I'm just stunned it didn't happen. I mean, hats off to the 4 guys that get in. Buck O'Neil get in on another ballot. So really, I just think second time in a row, one vote short. I feel for his family. I feel for the people who supported him. Local guy, former groundskeeper Mark Carfagno has done tireless work promoting Dick. Mike Schmidt, tireless advocacy for Mike Schmidt. John Middleton and the Phillies, ditto. So I feel for all the people that supported him, and most of all, I feel for his family. I got to know Dick Allen's brother, Hank, when he was a scout with Houston. Played in the big leagues. I mean, 3 Allen boys played in the big leagues. That's pretty remarkable. Three Allen boys played in the big leagues, and so I got to know Hank, his brother, who played for the Senators, and I think he played for the Astros, scouted for the Astros. And I think of them; they must be crushed. And now they got to wait another 6 years for him to be on the ballot again. It's just, at some point, it's like, all right. I really think in all his supporters, and Dick said this when they retired his number, they said, this feels like his Hall of Fame going on the wall in Philadelphia. I hope they can find a lot of solace in that. And at some point, I think all his supporters, all the people who think that he belongs there, you kind of think, okay, in my mind, he's a Hall of Famer, but man, you got to get that plaque, or else it doesn't feel official. And I just feel like this was wrong. And I even said it in a tweet. This feels crappy. It feels crappy. It still feels crappy. And we can dig into some of his numbers in a minute, but you have to be surprised as well. I'm sorry for rambling on here.
No, I mean, it's crazy because when you look at like the credentials that Dick Allen has, you wonder what's missing. What's missing that has kept him out of the Hall of Fame this long? I mean, it's not like he had a short peak. He had a peak of more than a decade. He had an 11-year peak. And during that 11-year peak, 3 times he led the league in slugging, 3 times he led the league in OPS, twice he led the league in homers, once in RBIs, once in walks. He was a Rookie of the Year. He was an MVP. You look at those credentials, that's like an Albert Pujols-like career, minus the MVPs and minus the counting stats like 500-plus homers. But when you look at leading the sport in all of those power categories so many times during a decade span, you just wonder, like, what's kept him out all these years? Is it that we didn't value that? We didn't value those things for so many decades. We simply valued the Triple Crown stats, but even those, he had those. It's just,
to answer your question, and I don't know this for a fact, but my feeling is what kept him out on the writers' ballot. He lasted for 15 years on the writers' ballot, quietly dropped off in 97. What kept him out was the off-field baggage, There were people who labeled him as a bad teammate and a bad guy and a behavior problem and insubordinate. There was just as many people. I mean, Larry Bowa will tell you, because Dick came back and finished his career with the Phillies. Larry Bowa, Luzinski, Maddox, Schmidt, they'll all tell you he was a great teammate and a mentor to all those guys and a team-first guy. So there was this narrative. I think it was probably pushed by writers out there, maybe some in Chicago or maybe in Philadelphia. I don't know, that thought he was a bad guy and held it against him. And that's why he didn't get in the Hall of Fame. And that's why he didn't get in on the writers' ballot. There are writers now who are on record as saying that they didn't vote for him then, and they think he belongs there now. Upon further review, when you take the whole picture, on-field, off-field, what he went through as a person, they believe he belongs there. Also, when you view him through kind of these new advanced metrics that we have and new stat keeping, that, gosh, he absolutely belongs there. So, honestly, the baggage kept him out. A Hall of Fame vote is like any other vote. It is subjective, and people bring their own personal feelings into it. The writer's ballot has a sportsmanship or character clause that some guys take more seriously than others. To me, though, when you measure Dick Allen, the man, and what he went through, you get explanations for some of the behaviors that maybe folks held against him, and you realize he played in a very harsh environment. And if it was a better environment for him as a person, he would have even been a better player. So I'm disappointed he didn't get in. I mentioned some of those stats. Maybe I could just run through a couple of them, if that's okay, Corey.
Go for it.
So, his kind of, we talked about dominating your era. So from 1964, that was the year he won the Rookie of the Year award, arrived in Philadelphia. Actually arrived late in 63, but 64 is rookie season to 74. That's 11 years. He wins a Rookie of the Year and an American League MVP in that span, okay? So from that 11-year span against his contemporary players with a minimum of 3,000 plate appearances, OPS, which is a stat we all love these days, right? Joe Girardi talks about how much he loves OPS all the time. But OPS, 64 to 74, 11 seasons. Number one, Hank Aaron does not, in my opinion, does not get enough conversation for being maybe the best player ever in the game. Hank Aaron. Number one in OPS, Hank Aaron in that era, 941. Number two, Dick Allen at 940. And then you go Willie McCovey, Frank Robinson, Willie Stargell, Roberto Clemente, Willie Mays, Harmon Killebrew, Carl Yastrzemski, and Billy Williams. All Hall of Famers. All of them, except Dick Allen. Slugging. I mean, he had these big hands. He used to knock the ball off the roof at Connie Mack Stadium. Slugging from that era. Number one, Henry Aaron. Number two, Dick Allen. Stargell, McCovey, Robinson, Mays, Clemente, Williams, Jackson, Killebrew. All Hall of Famers except for Dick Allen. So he stacks up against these. I mean, and these are not just like squeak in Hall of Famers. These are no doubt about it, like first ballot, first and second ballot, slam dunk, rare air Hall of Famers. And he's number two in OPS and slugging. In WAR, F-WAR, Fangraphs WAR, he ranks in that era fourth behind Aaron Yastrzemski, Ron Santo, behind all those guys, ahead of Brooks Robinson, Willie Mays, Clemente, Frank Robinson, Pete Rose, and Joe Morgan. So in that era, in Fangraphs WAR, number four. OPS plus, which is give us a quick primer on OPS plus, Corey.
Basically just normalizes compared to the year and the league that you're in. So, if you have an OPS of 970 in 1950, when the rest of the league was not hitting to that level, your OPS is going to be much higher compared to the rest of the league than it was in the steroid era.
Okay. So OPS plus in that era, 64 to 74, he's number one, ahead of McCovey, Aaron, Frank Robinson, Stargell, Reggie Jackson, Clemente, Mays, Killebrew, Frank Howard. He's number one in OPS plus from that era. And now we move on to, let me just throw in here extra base hits in that era. Billy Williams is number one with 702. Hank Aaron is so Billy Williams is number one at 702. Hank Aaron is number two at 689. Dick Allen is number three at 670, ahead of Willie Stargell, Frank Robinson, Carl Yastrzemski, Ron Santo, Tony Oliva, Lou Brock, and Willie McCovey, all Hall of Famers now with Tony Oliva getting in. And tell us about WRC plus.
Weighted runs created plus. It's another one of the advanced stats that kind of just takes the full scale of your offense. So if you're hitting doubles and triples and homers, it's weighted higher than if you're hitting singles. As a lot of these stats illustrate, though, Dick Allen was just in a league of his own, really, when it came to power and on-base skills.
So WRC plus, Dick Allen, 64 to 74, number one in Major League Baseball, ranking of 163, ahead of McCovey, Frank Robinson, Hank Aaron, Stargell, Reggie Jackson, Willie Mays, Clemente, Killebrew, and Yastrzemski. So honestly, I know that, it's not necessarily an objective vote, but these are objective numbers. He belongs in the Hall of Fame. Jeez.
Well, so does this mean that the next time that this voting body is going to convene is 2027?
I think December of 2026, they will convene again for a 27 election. 2026 being a very big year in Philadelphia baseball. I mean, it's the 250th anniversary of the country, and the Phillies will host the All-Star game. Maybe Dick Allen will get in then. I hope he does, but it just feels like it's going to be way too late. He should have gotten in on the writers' ballot, and then he should have gotten in 14. He's not getting in now. Maybe that'll be the ticket for him then. I certainly hope so.
Who's on this voting committee? Do you know?
I had all the names in my story.
Because I know you mentioned Mike Schmidt was on it. Right.
So it was 16 individuals. They do not reveal their ballots, unlike the BBWAA does for its end of season awards. Unlike in the Hall of Fame, the regular voting on the Hall of Fame, most people reveal their ballot. Actually, some people don't, but it's your choice. I mean, whoever didn't vote for Derek Jeter didn't reveal his ballot. That still is crazy. But so these are secret ballots, and you're only allowed to vote for four guys. Minoso ended up getting 14. You needed 12 to get in, 75% of the 16. Minoso got 14, and Hodges, Cott, and Oliva got 12, right at 75. And Allen was 11 for the second straight cycle, 1 vote short. So the list of names off the top of my head, I mean, I wrote them in the story that's still on NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com. Mike Schmidt was on there, and I'm sure he spoke on Allen's behalf. I mean, he's done it on the record with anybody who wants to talk about it. The names I saw was like Rod Carew, Ferguson Jenkins, Joe Torre, Bud Selig. There was some veteran media members, including Jack O'Connell, who's the head of the Baseball Writers Association of America, Steve Hurt, who was with, I believe for years, was with Elias, well-known, statistical guru. Who else? There's a number of others. Some current executives like Al Avila, the GM of the Tigers, Kim Ng, the GM of the Marlins, Tony Regans of the Commissioner's Office was on there. Who am I missing? I'm clearly missing a few, but that gives you, so it's former players, Hall of Famers, executives, current executives, past executives, and a couple of media members. Just, when you can only vote for, it's a tough ballot. All those guys are worthy. I just thought, geez, I just think he rises above everybody that got in.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's a different story a few years from now. It doesn't take the sting out of all these snubs for Dick Allen. But with Jim, just kind of shifting gears here, we talked earlier about the lockout and the fact that, teams legally or, by the book cannot negotiate with players. What do you think someone like Dave Dombrowski is doing during this period? I
don't know. Maybe he's painting a hallway or something. You're allowed to talk to your own front office. I mean, hopefully, I'm sure he is. I mean, they're trying to move this thing forward. I'm sure they're planning their strategy to jump back into roster construction when the doors are open again. They also have a minor league system that they continue to kind of reshape here. I heard they hired Adam Everett, the former big league infielder, to be an infield instructor, maybe even the infield coordinator. They continue to do things like that. Just plan for the season and plan to hit the ground running when the doors open. When the lockout occurred, they had been involved with Kyle Schwarber. I'm imagining they're, gearing up to make another push to try to get him when the doors are open. And, just be ready. Be ready when it happens. And we'll see.
Jim, we haven't talked a lot about Michael Conforto this offseason. Before we get out of here, I just wanted to gauge whether you thought he was a realistic possibility for this team. Like Nick Castellanos, Conforto would cost the Phillies a high draft pick because he rejected that qualifying offer.
I like Conforto. I wrote about him. I started, talking about him, writing about him back at the GM meetings. I think he'd be a nice fit. It's just that the qualifying offer could be an impediment. They're on the record as saying they, would like to stay away from guys with qualifying offers because they don't want to give up a draft pick. But that's not hard and fast. Maybe depending on his price and how long this thing goes on, where everybody's price is, maybe they become more open-minded to giving up a draft pick, depending on, what you could lock down a guy like that for, a guy like Castellanos. So they have not, etched it in stone that they won't sign a guy with a qualifying offer, but they'd like to stay away from that. But yeah, Conforto would be a good fit. He's left-handed, and that would, they want a nice bat in the middle of that lineup, a productive bat. If they had their druthers, it would be from the left side. So he would be a guy that certainly would be a fit if they could, in their own minds, justify giving up that draft pick. It's hard to do when their farm system is not strong. They have, a few kids at the top they really like, but they need more of them. This team's big issue is developing and drafting and developing homegrown difference makers. They've come up so short in that area. I mean, they have 2 openings in the outfield, and in 15, 16, and 17, they drafted outfielders all within the top 10 picks. Cornelius Randolph in 15, I think, was number 10. Moniak in 16, I think, was number 1, and then Hazley was like 7, I think, or 8 in 16, and none of them have developed to the point where they can seize one of your outfield openings. So it's infuriating that you brought these guys in and you can't even they can't. Now you're out in the free agent market looking for help, big money help in these areas where you didn't either draft the right guy or they didn't develop well enough to hold on one of those jobs. And then you had Kingery as well, who they started to make a center fielder, and he didn't seize those opportunities. So it just shows how they've come up so short, woefully short in player development and in player procurement, which is as important. So that doesn't mean you stop trying to draft the right guys and draft young talent, develop it the right way. And those high picks are really, really valuable, and you got to get them here, and they got to be difference makers, or you're always going to be out there on the free agent market spending money, and that's very difficult to sustain. Life on the free agent market, constructing your team every year on the free agent market is very difficult to do. They already have a lot of high-end salaries. They need to have some younger homegrown guys, but it's really hurt that none of those 4 guys has developed into a capable big league center fielder, or even a difference-making big league center fielder, given where they were picked in the draft. So
yeah,
they want to protect those picks, but I'm not saying they wouldn't. Maybe when the doors open again after the lockdown, maybe the prices are more palatable, and boom, they say, you know what, it's going to make sense to make this free agent acquisition and give up a draft pick. I just don't know where it's going to go.
Just imagine how much different this would all look if only one of those players panned out. Like if just one of Moniak or Hazley could be batting second for you right now and playing center field or playing left field. That's one less position you have to worry about allocating free agent dollars. That's a guy that you have cost control, producing, and that they say don't judge a draft for a few years. Well, Right now we're seeing what happens when you fail, when you have high picks like that, those 2016, 2017 years.
It stings. It really, really stings. I mean, if Randolph was on a course to be a big leaguer and difference maker like you thought he was going to be when you drafted him 10th overall, and compared him to Tony Gwynn, you don't make a $50 million. You don't sign a $50 million check for Andrew McCutchen. So
right,
they've really hurt themselves in those areas.
All right, well, lots of time to talk about free agency here. He's Jim Salisbury. I'm Corey Seidman. Thanks for listening to the Phillies Talk podcast. We'll catch you early next week.